Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another true crime deep dive. And today we are going into part one of a two-part series discussing the murder of Mariah Wilson, a 25-year-old rising star in the pro cycling world who was shot to death in Austin, Texas in May of 2022. Within days of her death, Mo's killer would be identified, but then an international manhunt ensued as the person responsible fled the country and went to great lengths to conceal their identity. Now, when it was revealed who police thought had killed Mo, the world found out that it wasn't some possessive lover or professional rival, but a jealous woman named Caitlin Armstrong, who had reason to believe there was something more than friendship between Mo and Armstrong's boyfriend, Colin Strickland. Now, the news headlines have called it a love triangle, but the family and loved ones of Mo Wilson understand that whatever led us to where we are, the outcome was a needless tragedy that never should have happened, because it doesn't matter how jealous or hurt someone is. That never gives them a reason or excuse to destroy the lives of others. We have a lot to cover today, and in the next video, it's a roller coaster of a case, but this specific roller coaster, during my research, I found out has more like loops than hills, because I kept going around and around during my research for this case. It was one thing after another kept popping up, and I was like, this is actually bananas. And when we get into part two and we talk about what Caitlin Armstrong's defense team claims, in my opinion, allegedly, don't come for me, it's absolutely ludicrous. It's so ludicrous, such a reach. Honestly, just a really desperate attempt to put up some sort of defense for actions that were indefensible, that it needs to be talked about and made fun of a little bit. So we do have a lot to cover today. So before we do, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Incogni, and then we can dive right into it. Privacy is very important to me because a lot of my life is out there on the internet, but I want to make sure there isn't too much out there because I want to protect myself, my family, my loved ones. And maybe you didn't know, but every day thousands of companies are collecting, aggregating, and trading your personal data without you knowing anything about it. And I'm not just talking about the basics like your full name or your email address, even your phone number. I'm talking like social security numbers, your address, IP information, employment history, even your shopping habits. And it's scary to think about what someone could do to hurt you with all of that information. If these companies are only selling your data, that's the least of what they could do, although that is annoying as well. Now, I don't want to give anyone that kind of access to me or that kind of power to mess with my life. Life is hard enough. And don't even get me started on what happens if any of these companies have a data breach. According to a report published by the Identity Theft Resource Center, a record number of 1,862 data breaches occurred in 2021 in the U.S., and this number broke the previous record of 1,506 set in 2017 and showed a 68% increase compared to the 1,108 breaches in 2020. And we're talking big companies like Yahoo, Facebook, Home Depot. Like, they've all had these massive data breaches. And when these things happen, you don't even sometimes find out about it until the company notifies you. And sometimes they don't notify you, and you only find out about it when all of your information, including credit card numbers, banking info, social security numbers, are all up for sale on the dark web. And then you find out that somebody has stolen your identity. And let me tell you, the road after that is rocky. You don't want to do it alone. You have the right to request data brokers delete what information they have about you and protect your privacy. The bad news is it would take you years to do it manually, and that's where Incogni comes in. Incogni can do all that long, messy work for you automatically. Incogni helps you protect your privacy and take your personal data off the market by reaching out to data brokers on your behalf and requesting that your data be removed, and then also they'll deal with any objections. So it's kind of like having a little personal assistant to help you with these things. I've had issues in the past with identity theft, and like I said, it will take years to fix. I don't want to ever do that again, and I don't wish that on anyone. And that's why I use Incogni myself, and I suggest anybody I care about also use it. Incogni is even great for other issues, smaller issues. Let's say this holiday season you get your arm twisted at a few stores to register for store loyalty cards. You know, What's the big deal? It's free. You might get some discounts. What's the worst that could happen? Well, within a few days, suddenly you're getting blown up by emails and even spam phone calls, and then you're wishing you could find a time machine and go back to stand your ground when you were asked to give your phone number and email address for these loyalty cards. The Incogni setup process is super easy. You just sign up with your email address, and then a number will pop up on the screen showing you how many data brokers Incogni has on its list ready to be contacted, which I love because it's a real tangible number and it makes me feel like something's already being done and I'm one step closer to being safe on the internet. I love that Incogni is easy to use. The interface itself is very streamlined, very clean. There isn't a bunch of clutter. It tells me exactly what I need to know so I can move on with my day. And then as time goes on, Incogni is going to keep you updated on what's happening. For instance, for me, after a few weeks, I was notified that 9 data brokers had already deleted my data, and I was able to clearly see that in the Incogni dashboard. So I definitely think you should try Incogni out for yourself. Everyone can benefit from this service, and right now the first 100 people to click the link in the description box below and to use code stephanieharlowe will get 60% off at Incogni. Once again, click the link in the description box, use code stephanieharlowe. There's an E on the end of Stephanie and Harlowe. You're going to get 60% off at Incogni, and you can start getting your private information wiped from the internet right now. Thank you so much to Incogni for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. So this is one of those cases where so much happened and there's so much complexity and shades of gray that I really didn't know where to start. So eventually I decided to kind of start with an explanation of who the relevant players in this case are. And those people would be Colin Strickland, Mariah Wilson, and Caitlin Armstrong. And then there's another woman who's going to pop in towards the end of today's video. Her name's Caitlin Cash. We're going to talk about her a little later. But right now we're going to start with Colin, because whether or not we like it, and he certainly doesn't, everything does kind of circle around Colin. All of these people are connected to Colin in some way. If not for Colin, most of these people would not know each other, right? Caitlin Armstrong, his girlfriend, and Mariah Wilson, his friend, would never even know each other. They probably never would have crossed paths. I mean, maybe they would have, but not in this way. Not in this way. In 2020, Colin Strickland was considered the country's fastest man on a gravel bicycle. And for those who don't know, I certainly didn't before I started covering this case. Gravel bike racing is basically a cross between mountain biking and road biking. And according to redbull.com, quote, the sport allows riders to head into the unknown, following traditional tarmac roads, less well-maintained secondary roads, and forest and mountain trails for a true mix of environments and a freedom that is hard to match anywhere else than on a gravel bike. End quote. Gravel racing has been around for a bit over a decade, but today gravel bikes are one of the fastest growing sectors in the industry, with sales jumping over 109% between 2019 and 2021. Unbound is one of the most popular gravel races in the United States, taking place every year in Kansas. And in 2021, it was attended by 2,600 racers, but a year later, 4,000 racers signed up. And luckily, this boom in gravel racing was exactly when Colin Strickland decided to get into the discipline. Now, according to OutsideOnline.com, quote, over the past 5 years, Strickland has stayed one step ahead of cycling's latest fads and fashions, blossoming from a roadie into the king of fixed gear criteriums as that racing format hit its zenith. Then, Strickland transformed himself into the Don of American gravel racing at the exact moment that off-road cycling cracked the mainstream. Along his journey, Strickland redefined what it means to be a professional American cyclist racing in his prime. Rather than race for a professional team, he built his own portfolio of individual sponsors without the benefit of a past World Tour career. He started riding in 2010 as part of a fixed gear group ride through downtown Austin. He and his friends blared Slayer from a boombox and called the event Heavy Metal Fitness Ride. Within a year, Strickland moved on from fixies to the local Austin Driveway Series criterium scene and quickly blossomed into one of the strongest riders in the region. What Strickland lacked in experience, he more than made up for in raw natural power, and he blazed through the amateur category in a few months. End quote. And basically, a bunch of people in the industry, in the gravel biking industry, were interviewed, friends, colleagues of Colin, and they were like, it was crazy. Basically, out of nowhere, this dude popped on the scene, and he was, the best thing that anybody had seen since sliced bread. Very quickly, it happened. and he started making a name for himself. But when Colin first started cycling, he looked at it as a hobby. He was 26 years old at that time and working as an environmental scientist, making pretty good money, and he figured he was too old at that point to really crack into the pro world of cycling. He felt that no brands or companies would want to sponsor him. But when Colin started, really catching eyes in the cycling world, he took it upon himself to inquire about sponsorships with local businesses in Austin, Texas, where he lived. And within no time, bigger national brands like Red Bull came calling. When Colin began making more money through his hobby than he was making at his day job, he decided to focus on gravel racing solely. But the business end of things would become a lot for him to handle on his own. And in 2020, he told OutsideOnline.com, quote, "I need a manager, but I can't afford a manager. I don't write anything down. I keep everything in my head," end quote. And apparently, he would find a manager in his girlfriend, Caitlin Armstrong. And I would say that you should never mix business with pleasure, but hey, it's none of my business. And it would be a little too late at this point. But seriously, try not to mix business with pleasure. Try. According to Colin, he met Caitlin Armstrong on a dating app in October of 2019, and by January of 2021, they were living together. Now, it doesn't appear that Colin and Caitlin moved in together because they just loved each other so much that they couldn't stand to not fall asleep next to each other every night and wake up next to each other every morning. It seems like it was more of a necessity for Caitlin at that time, although I will say, I think she definitely wanted to move in with him, okay? I think she definitely did, and he certainly didn't. So that year, I guess there was some big snowstorms and ice storms in Austin, and Caitlin's apartment flooded. So she moved into Colin's house, and then she just never left. Now, Colin said he had not been in favor of living together, but Caitlin needed a place to stay badly, so he was like, yeah, of course you can stay with me. I'm your boyfriend. Like, I'm not going to leave you out in the cold or have you pay for a hotel. I have a house. But he assumed it would be a short-term situation. Now, if you want to know what I think, listen, I know sometimes you guys don't like talking about psychology or you don't like talking about other things outside of the case, but what you have here is a textbook dismissive, avoidant, anxiously attached relationship. Colin is the dismissive avoidant. Caitlin is the anxiously attached partner. And what you're going to see here is the anxious avoidant trap playing out over and over and over again. And for those of you who are aware of attachment issues, tell me I'm wrong in the comments. You can't. It's textbook. It's so textbook that if either of them had been self-aware of their own triggers and patterns, this may not have happened. And trust me, I see where responsibility lies on everybody in this case. Not everybody. Not really Mo Wilson, but definitely with both Colin and Caitlin. And I'm not trying to shame this man. He made mistakes. He made a lot of mistakes that I 100% know he regrets now, and hopefully he will not repeat them in the future. So Colin gives me very I'm an independent man vibe. I want to be a forever bachelor vibe. He probably had leather furniture. Maybe his apartment smelled of rich mahogany. He just kind of was very fiercely independent, which dismissive avoidants are. They put their independence around themselves like a wall. They don't really want to ever rely on anybody. They don't want to become too emotionally attached or dependent on anybody. And you'll see that they often keep their partners at an arm's length. And Colin was perfectly fine alone because he was more than just a professional cyclist. In his soul, he was kind of like a hobbyist and an entrepreneur, and he was always looking for a juicy business opportunity. And he also had a passion for tinkering with things. He liked to take something old and fix it up to make it usable and functional again. So in 2014, Colin Strickland had purchased a rundown foreclosure house in Austin, and he did this because he saw that the city's tech boom had brought more entertainment and businesses to that area, and he was like, okay, this is going to be a happening, hopping area in a few years. This is a good opportunity to buy this house for cheap, fix it up, which he had done by 2020. He fixed up the house and he was renting out a room in that house on Airbnb. This was the house that Caitlin moved into. And from there, she helped Colin run the business end of his life. So he would be out cycling, he would be out being the face, and she was behind the scenes dealing with sponsorships, finances, helping with his trailer restoration business, Wheelhouse Mobile. Remember, I said Colin likes to tinker with things, so he takes old Spartan trailers and basically refurbishes them, fixes them up. That was one of his businesses that he had started, and Caitlin worked for this business as well. But because of how deeply entwined she was in his business dealings, Caitlin Armstrong had access to all of Colin's social media passwords, business and banking information. She also had complete access to a laptop that the two shared, which was attached to Colin's iCloud. So this was a business laptop that they both used, but obviously it's Colin's information, accounts, etc. that are signed into this iCloud because he's the face of the business. And even though they seem to find a very good business balance as far as like their working relationship was concerned, Colin and Caitlin had their share of troubles romantically, and they would sometimes break up. They would have an argument, Caitlin would try to hold on, Colin would pull away, anxious, avoidant trap, and he'd be like, I need some space, I can't do this, we need to take a break from each other. But they would continue to live together because of their business relationship and because, apparently Caitlin was still fixing the flooding damage in her apartment. I swear to God, that girl flooded her own damn apartment, okay? Allegedly, don't come for me. During these times of separation, when they were taking breaks, Colin said that both he and Caitlin dated other people, although Caitlin would tell her friends that Colin was the only one she wanted. I mean, Caitlin was head over heels for Colin. And she claimed she only went and saw other men to make him jealous, to make him want her back, which does not work with a dismissive avoidant, actually, because the first thing a dismissive avoidant feels after a breakup, and for several months after that breakup, is relief, because they finally feel like they've regained their independence and they've regained their sense of self and they were able to disengage from you because they're terrified of being close to you. So during the trial, Caitlin Armstrong's trial, Colin would testify about the tumultuous relationship he had with Caitlin. He said that at one time he did love her. He felt that he loved her, and he felt that she loved him as well. And their relationship, when things were going well, basically when he wasn't triggered and when she wasn't asking for too much from him, he would feel very comfortable, very loving. There was a lot of good companionship and warmth, and she was just a chill girl, not confrontational. He said she was one of the most, chill, unconfrontational people I've ever known. I have my theories about that, which I will tell you at the end of this video because I don't want to keep interrupting the narrative with my thoughts. So when things were good with Caitlin and Colin, they were fine. He was happy, she seemed happy. But when things were tense, when there was conflict, Colin would question whether he and Caitlin could be compatible long term. He said he just wasn't sure that they had what it took to go the long haul together. And I sort of feel like he voiced this to her. And he was like, if you can't do this, if you can't not be so jealous, if you can't not be so clingy, et cetera, I just don't know if this is going to work for me. And this dynamic created a ton of tension between Colin and Caitlin. And it's going to because they're separated often, and then they're still living together, right? And they're still seeing when each other goes out or what each other is doing from the day to day. There's no space, there's no distance. And let's say you're Caitlin and your boyfriend starts dating somebody else, you're gonna kind of have an idea that this is happening when he's getting ready to go out at night or he's going away for long weekends, and you have access to his social media, so you know who he's talking to. And this is kind of exactly what happened, because in September of 2021, Colin met fellow gravel racing star Mariah Wilson at a bike race in Utah, and the two clicked right away. Colin said, quote, "She was obviously going to be an immense talent," end quote. And Colin said he wanted to help Mo achieve her goals and get sponsorships in the way that he had. In effect, Colin wanted to be like a professional mentor to Mo Wilson, who was, I believe, 10 years his senior. Now, 25-year-old Mariah Wilson, or Mo, as everyone called her, grew up in Kirby, Vermont. And from very early on, her parents, Eric and Karen, knew that Mo was a natural born athlete. It was in her blood, after all. Her father, Eric, had grown up nearby and he'd skied for the U.S. national team. Her Aunt Laura had competed in cross country skiing during the Winter Olympics. Both her brother and her mother were always on the slopes. You know, they were a skiing family. They lived in Vermont. And at just 8 years old, Mo had entered her first ski race. At Burke Mountain Academy, where her father worked as a ski instructor, Mo lettered in cycling, alpine skiing, and soccer. And her coaches at Burke knew that Mo had this untapped raw talent that would take her far. Now listen, if you don't know what Burke Mountain Academy is, I didn't before I started looking into the case. It's crazy. I didn't even think places like this really existed. It seems like one of those schools you would see on a CW television series. Like, it's not real, at least in my world. Apparently, Burke Mountain Academy was the nation's first elite ski academy, which also boasts college preparatory level academics, and they have a very low acceptance rate. You know, not many students get in. They have to be special. They have to be the best. And at Burke, Mo would have counted as being the best. She'd eventually become the captain of her ski team, but everyone kind of found out that she also excelled at mountain biking, which is a suggested off-season and cross-training activity for skiers because it works the same muscle groups. Who knew? Not me, because you will not catch my ass on a bike or on skis. Nope. Basically, Mo Wilson seemed like, I don't know, a really awesome kind of girl, like a girl that I would get along with. We wouldn't go skiing or biking together, but we would talk business together. We would talk, you know, how can we be perfectionists together? How can we just like devote every ounce of energy and brain cells we have into being the best at whatever we do? No matter what she was doing, Mo seemed to thrive in a competitive environment. She never shied away from a challenge. Mo had grit. She didn't give up, and she'd been a perfectionist since she was a child. So no one was surprised when she was accepted into Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. And this is a school that boasted the best skiing team in the country at that time. Probably still. Like I said, I don't know anything about skiing. I like to go snowmobiling, but I went skiing once, and I think I was just too young to go down the hill I was going down, and it's traumatized me. The same way I will never get on a horse again after falling off and being dragged by the stirrups for what felt like an eternity. Yeah, I have some trauma against some activities that I will never, ever do again. So Dartmouth College is actually just a very good college in general, right? It's right up there with Yale and Harvard and all of those. So Mo's got a great start in life. However, she had a little bit of a late start in college because while she was majoring in engineering, joining a sorority, and forming a close group of friends, she kind of had to stay off the slopes during her freshman year because she was recovering from a torn ACL. When Mo started skiing again, she felt like maybe the time off had caused her to lose a little bit of her edge. But instead of giving up or accepting this, just being like, well, I guess I'm just not as good as I used to be, Mo started training harder. She put in extra hours in the weight room, and she led her college team on long, tough bike rides during warmer weather. She was really kind of just driving them and pushing them to be better because she expected from them what she expected out of herself, which was the best. And because of her hard work, Mo rose to the level of a nationally ranked junior alpine skier, and she placed third in the 2013 U.S. Junior National Championship downhill competition. After college, though, there was a shift, and it's never really explained why. Like, if I could talk to most parents and close friends, I'd probably understand better. But Mo began to move away from skiing and more towards competitive biking, specifically the new and exciting discipline of gravel racing. And at the end of the day, it's probably just because she liked it better. She felt like she was better at it, so she wanted to lean into that. And from what I know, what I hear from people who do gravel racing, let me know in the comments if you've ever done gravel racing or if you're familiar with it, by the way. But from what I hear is the long rides and the intensity and kind of like the adrenaline and dopamine that it's giving you, like people who are in their heads a lot are super good at gravel racing, and it really benefits them because they spend hours on this bike, but they're not thinking about racing. Their body's doing the work, and their mind is just kind of going over a bunch of stuff that they maybe kind of shifted to the side during regular business hours when they had other stuff going on and they were busy. And this riding this in these gravel races allows them to have time to like process and self-reflect, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds like a great mental exercise for type A personalities like Mo Wilson. As we kind of discussed, it wasn't like riding a bike was anything new for Mo Wilson. She'd been riding a mountain bike since the time she could walk, and most of the roads in Vermont where she grew up were gravel roads. So as soon as she hopped on a gravel bike and started showing everyone what she could do, it looked as if she had been like made for the sport, created for gravel racing. After graduating from Dartmouth, Mo took a 3-week bike trip through Europe, and when she returned to the States, she told her friends she was in the best shape of her life and she was ready to compete, and compete she did. In the fall of 2019, Mo participated in her first ever gravel race called the Old Growth Classic in San Francisco, and she came in second place. That's her first gravel race ever, and she comes in second place. As she continued to race, as she continued to smoke the competition, Mo realized that she had a chance to actually make her dreams of becoming a professional athlete a reality. Now, at the time, Mo was working full-time as a demand forecaster for a company called Specialized Bike Components. And basically this company designs and markets bikes and bike-related components. So it was actually a good place for her to work because she could still be in that arena, that professional bike racing arena, but she could make a living too. But Mo would always try to juggle everything, be the best at everything. She would never rest. So during the week, she would do her job, but then on weekends, she would hop on a flight and she'd be all over the country competing in races. And they said oftentimes she would be like taking calls for her work while she was flying back from a race. And it was kind of just like this whole balancing act, juggling act, keeping everything in the air and still trying to give her best and her all to everything. But it wasn't long before Mo's name was well known in the gravel racing world. And as a very focused, driven, and private person, becoming a public figure kind of overnight, it was initially very intimidating for her. Her own family described Mo as being really private, mysterious, a person who had her own internal life that she didn't really talk to anyone about. She didn't really let anyone in. Like, she was a good friend, a good listener, but she didn't really go to other people with her problems. She handled them herself. And as she rose in popularity, all the sudden attention where people just wanted to know who she was, like, who is this new girl? And she's cute as a button, by the way. So she's the perfect face for women in gravel racing, right? She's adorable, she's relatable, she works hard, she's badass, she's everything that you'd want to represent your sport. And so obviously people are going to become fans. They're going to start writing to her, following her on social media. They're going to want to know about her life. And all the attention became a bit overwhelming for Mo. However, like anything else in her life, Mo wasn't going to back down. She wasn't going to be like, oh, I don't like attention. This is too hard for me. No, she was going to figure out how she could make this newfound situation work. Not only for her, but for others who looked up to her. Because as she became more popular, she realized, people are like looking to me as somebody to aspire to be. That's a huge responsibility. So instead of focusing on all the people who are trying to pry into my personal life or all the people who are being, parasocial with me, I'm going to focus on the women who are writing to me saying, you've inspired me and I want to be just like you one day. So in her journal, Mo wrote that some of her goals were to inspire people to ride bikes, to be active. She wanted to inspire other riders, especially female athletes, who she felt were often overlooked and undermined in professional sports. She wanted to teach people about, being active, but also to focus on body positivity, to focus on being healthy, but also focus on loving yourself. And so over the course of a year, Mo would go on to dominate every gravel event she took part in. And in May of 2022, she'd finally decided to quit her job so she could race full time. This is the same month and year that she was murdered. Now, a big influence on Mo's decision to finally quit her day job and focus fully on racing was her new friend, Colin Strickland, who, as we know, had done the same thing. He was working as, an environmental scientist, making pretty good money. He said, listen, we can make money, more money maybe, or the same, whatever, but we can still make money doing what we love. Wouldn't you rather do that? He gave her the courage and kind of like the proof's in the pudding kind of thing to show her it can be done. And Colin told her, listen, you have what it takes. If you're able to channel all your focus and energy into gravel racing and you don't have these other distractions, you're going to go far. And this gave her confidence. It made her more brave about taking that leap into the unknown, quitting her job to focus on her passion and hobby. But here's where things became complicated, because Colin and Mo were not just professional colleagues. They weren't just friends. He wasn't just her older, wiser mentor. They'd actually dated for a brief time in October of 2021 when Colin and his girlfriend Caitlin Armstrong were on one of their breaks. So it looks like it was kind of like the end of October 2021 going into the beginning of November 2021 that Colin and Mo Wilson were sort of actually in an intimate relationship. And this break between Colin and Caitlin happened when they were at a gravel racing event in Bentonville, Arkansas in the fall of 2021. Apparently, Colin went on a mountain bike ride with some of the other cyclists, including Mo Wilson, and he didn't invite Caitlin to go with them because he felt she didn't have the experience for this level of ride, and he didn't want to be held back, essentially. Now, Caitlin, as her job, she worked for Colin, but she was also like a yoga instructor. She was fit. She was in good shape. She did her share of gravel racing and mountain biking and things like that, most likely to just try to be doing something that Colin was doing. I don't think she was doing it before she met him, but she'd been racing and she could, go on a bike. She knew how to ride a bike. But he knew that as far as like a ride with himself and other professional athletes, she'd probably be left behind. Caitlin became very angry about this, about being left out, because she's anxious and she really depends on him a lot. She's very codependent on him and she felt, spurned. So Caitlin and Colin, they fought and he ended things. Once again, he's pulling away. He's like, this is too much pressure. You want too much from me. I cannot meet your needs. I gotta pull away. I need a break. So 5 to 6 days later, Mo Wilson was in Austin, and Colin claims he didn't know she was coming, but this is the time period where he and Mo became intimate and they started a relationship. Reportedly, this went on for about a week. I think it was longer, personally, but all the reports say a week. Colin himself said this went on for about a week. But then Mo left Austin to continue racing. But Mo and Colin remained friends, according to him, and they would often chat. They would text each other, message each other on social media. But when Mo and Colin were, together, like in a relationship, Caitlin caught wind of this. And on October 28th, she texted Colin, quote, "I know you better than to show up at Meteor with that girl," end quote. Now that girl was Mo Wilson, and Meteor is the Meteor Cafe. This is a chain of bike-themed restaurants. There's one in Austin. And from what I could tell from their social medias, Meteor Cafe appeared to have partnerships with both Mo and Colin through like gravel racing. It also looked like Meteor Cafe is where Colin and Caitlin would hang out with their friends. Mostly these people would be people that Colin met through gravel racing. They would become friends with Caitlin through him. And it wasn't that they liked Colin better. They'd end up liking Caitlin just as much. But they mainly met Caitlin through Colin. But this is where they'd all kind of hang out, where they'd have events. If they had races in Austin, this is where they would get together afterwards to grab some drinks, chat, talk about the race, etc. So Caitlin says, "I know you better not be showing up at the Meteor Cafe with Mo Wilson." Even though Caitlin and Colin are broken up, technically they're on a break, she hears somehow that Mo Wilson is at the Meteor Cafe, and she assumes that Colin brought her there. Most likely Mo was just there because she was in town. Most likely Mo was just there because she had a partnership with them. Maybe she gets like free drinks. I don't know. But either way, Colin replied to this text and he told Caitlin, "Please be an adult." And when he was asked about this during the trial, he stated that, he and Mo had gone to the Meteor Cafe in Austin at this time, but he doesn't believe it was at that moment when Caitlin asked him if they'd been at the Meteor Cafe. Mo was probably just there alone. So Caitlin's very jealous. She's very possessive. She's very anxious at this point. She's watching everything he's doing, even though they've broken up. And I believe that their friends were at the Meteor Cafe. Mo Wilson walked in. They were probably like, "Oh, hey, Mo," because they all know each other in the gravel racing world. "What are you doing in town?" And Mo was like, "Oh, I'm just here visiting friends or whatever." These friends called Caitlin And they were like, yo, Mo Wilson's here. That's crazy, right? And Caitlin's over here, like, just spiraling. She's putting two and two together, creating a narrative in her head that's just going to cause her to spiral further. And she's like, okay, Mo Wilson's in Austin. My boyfriend just broke up with me. I'm jealous of Mo and Colin and their closeness and the bond and the passion that they share. I'm going to have a meltdown right now and start sending these passive-aggressive texts. Colin said, listen, yes, Mo and I were, seeing each other. But when it happened, me and Caitlin were not together. So I didn't feel like she had any right to be acting all possessive. But later that night, that same day that she sent the text, like, you better not be with that girl at Meteor, Caitlin called Mo Wilson. And we don't know exactly what happened in this conversation. We know that Mo Wilson was upset about it. And we know that Caitlin would later tell her friend, Nicole Mertz, that she'd basically told Mo to back off. She said, listen, me and Colin are still living together. We're business partners. We're going to be back together. We always do get back together. Back off, lady, right? The call between Caitlin and Mo lasted just a minute and a half. And I kind of assumed that Mo just picked up, said hello, and Caitlin was like, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and then was like, okay, period. Any questions? And then Mo was like speechless and like, no, I get it. And then Caitlin hung up. Mo gave Colin the heads up that Caitlin had called her, and he texted Caitlin saying, quote, did you call Mo? WTF, end quote. He told Caitlin, listen, I really need to understand why you're doing this. We're not together. And once again, this is very dismissive avoidant behavior, because once a DA leaves a relationship, it's kind of like they turned their humanity switch off. They're not thinking about you. They're not sad about it. They're in that relief stage where they felt like smothered by you, and all of a sudden they feel like they can breathe again. And it's going to take like 4 to 6 to sometimes 8 months, maybe even longer, for a dismissive avoidant to finally get to a stage where they've processed the emotions of the breakup and they start like thinking about you again and thinking about like the good things you brought to their life and how much they did care about you. And then they're going to start missing you, and then they might reach out, but they might not. But anyways, basically, he was like, I don't understand what you're so upset about. We're over. We broke up. You don't have any rights to me, because he doesn't understand that like not everybody turns their humanity off after a breakup. Some people actually feel things. They feel sad. They feel pain. And Caitlin clearly was feeling that, because listen, Caitlin took off suddenly and flew to Mexico after her and Colin broke up. We're going to talk about that in a second. But after having her brief conversation with Mo, Caitlin spent 23 minutes on the phone with her sister, Christy Armstrong. Christy Armstrong is also going to be important. She's also going to pop back up in here a bunch of times. And I have a sister. So I know what was pretty much said during these 23 minutes, like, this bitch, you better stay away from my man. I told her what's what, and if she continues pursuing him, well, we're going to have another conversation, and it may not be so nice this time, 23 minutes of that, basically, and probably saying, like, Colin sucks, but really, she'd go back to him in a second. If he called her and said, Caitlin, I miss you, come over, she'd be like, oh, I don't care, you don't suck anymore, I'm on my way. But anyways, on November 7th, Caitlin texted a friend saying, quote, well, today is his birthday. He's at home with a 24-year-old who may or may not have moved to Austin, and I'm in Tulum, solo, mostly practicing sound healing, end quote. So, like I said, Caitlin and Colin break up. Colin jumps into something with Mo Wilson. Caitlin just hops on a flight, goes to Mexico. And apparently she kind of had a tendency to do these things. She's trying to escape. She's trying to escape the situation. She's thinking, like, if she goes to a new place, if she sees new things, if she's like mentally stimulated, she can snap out of this. She'll feel better. Or maybe he'll be like, yo, what is she doing in Mexico? Who's she talking to? And he's going to get jealous. But like I said, it does not work that way. And Caitlin's basically telling this friend, who probably reached out to her, because they don't say all of the texts and all of the context. They just give us breadcrumbs in these court documents and during this trial. Somebody probably texted Caitlin and said, what's going on with Colin? Are you okay? You guys broke up again? And Caitlin responded, well, it's his birthday. He's at home with a 24-year-old who may or may not have moved to Austin. So just because Mo was in Austin, Caitlin's immediately thinking, which is very anxious behavior, okay, that's it. He is in love with her. That's why he broke up with me. Now they're free to be together. She's going to move into his house. They're going to kick me out. She's going to move in. And I'm going to be like brokenhearted and left out in the cold. And so she's like panicking. But Colin was already sort of familiar with Caitlin Armstrong's pattern of fixating on other women in his life because Mo Wilson had not been the first girl who Caitlin had been jealous of and worried about. During the trial, Colin was asked about a young woman in Colorado who apparently he'd been conversing with in late 2020 before he and Caitlin were living together, but while they were in a relationship that was presumably a committed one. So when he's asked about this during the trial, they're like, do you remember this girl in Colorado? Colin responded for some reason. I don't understand why he had to say this. He's like, well, I have many, many female friends. I have many, many female friends. Many leather-bound books. Anyways, he said he had many female friends, many, many. But he was aware of who they were asking him about specifically. And again, he claims, listen, no, there was nothing between me and this woman in Colorado. We were never intimate. We were just friends and we texted often. And Colin claimed that at one point, in an effort to be transparent and honest with Caitlin, he had told her about this woman in Colorado. And after this, Caitlin had apparently become fixated on this woman. She had to figure out what was going on. Who was she? What did she look like? Et cetera, et cetera. And then Caitlin sent Colin a photo of the woman from Colorado. And in this photo, this woman's wearing jeans and a bra. Now, this picture had been sent to Colin from the woman in Colorado who was just friends with him. And there was nothing sexual going on, but okay. And he said when he got this picture from Caitlin, he was like, that was weird because I know I didn't tell Caitlin about this picture. I definitely didn't send it to her. Where did she get it from? Well, because she's in your social media, my dude, because you gave her all your passwords so she could manage your business and you didn't realize that she was going to use that for her own methods and to soothe her own anxieties whenever possible. And it was about at this time Colin claimed he started to feel hesitant to be open and honest with Caitlin because of the way she would react. And so he felt he had to start hiding things. He had to be a little bit more secretive. And listen, I'm not judging Colin, okay? I've been on both ends of this. Both ends of this. As a fearful, avoidant attachment style myself, depending on who I'm with, partner-wise, if they are more avoidant, I'll be more anxious. If they're more anxious, I'll be more avoidant. So I've been on both ends of this. I'm the perfect person. I understand both sides. And I do understand that when you are honest sometimes with your partner about things that they don't want to hear and they take it personally, you start to feel like, okay, well, now I know I can't tell this person these things because it leads to a fight. And avoidants like to avoid conflict. That's why they're called avoidants for more than one reason. It leads to fights. And so you start being more secretive and you don't even realize you're intentionally doing it, but you're just doing it to kind of keep the peace. But also, sometimes it's nefarious. I think in Colin's situation, not being open and honest with Caitlin about his movements, who he was talking to, etc., there was a nefarious reason behind that. I mean, because you can't convince me that all these girls you were talking to, all these girls, your many, many female friends, they were all just innocent friendships and none of them were interested in you and none of them were stroking your ego every 5 minutes because dismissive avoidants need tons of validation. They say they don't and they won't give it to you, but they need a ton. They need their ego stroked and usually by anybody who's available to do it. So you can't convince me that these women were just friends. And it's not illegal to cheat on your girlfriend, okay? I'm not going to call for Colin's head on a platter. But yeah, it was kind of shitty to do that to somebody. But also, as we're going to talk about, Caitlin's got her own responsibility in this because red flag after red flag with this dude. You done should have left, okay? There's others out there. So after Mo left town, after she left Austin and her brief relationship with Colin ended, he and Caitlin got back together about a month later, and that was allegedly when Caitlin told him that she wanted a gun for protection. So in December of 2021, Caitlin and Colin rode their bikes to McBride's, a family-owned gun shop near the University of Texas, and they each picked out a 9mm Sig Sauer P365 pistol. I guess they got one black and one silver. Now, why did they do this? Well, apparently, Caitlin was telling Colin that she was really paranoid. She was feeling very unsafe. So she would go on these solo bike rides, and she claimed that, men would be following her and harassing her out on the trails. When she had lived at her old apartment, there would be people who would show up banging on her doors, and she was worried that they were mentally unstable. Where Colin lived, I guess right around the corner, there was homeless people, and Caitlin was worried about homeless people. Isn't it funny? Because I genuinely don't think that she was actually concerned about these things. I think it was an excuse. It was a justification for why she wanted to buy the gun and have Colin buy the gun for her, because Colin was a big believer that every woman should own a gun for self-defense. He felt it was the great equalizer. Men are physically stronger than women. Women are in danger sometimes when they go out into the world. And so if they can own a gun and use it responsibly for self-defense, he thought that was a great idea. So I think she just used it as a reason to get him to buy her the gun. But imagine the irony that Caitlin Armstrong ends up killing Mo Wilson. But she's worried about the homeless people around the corner from where she's living. That's her main concern, but she's the actual bad guy. She's the dangerous one. Irony. So Colin purchased the guns along with 2 boxes of ammunition. One box of ammunition was marked for practice, but another box was marked 9mm JAG, J-A-G. Now this allegedly is a bullet designed to break apart on impact. And the whole purpose of that is to cause more internal damage to its target, right? So if a regular bullet shoots you, it might miss your, internal organs, the important ones that make you stay alive. So all of them, it might miss them, right? It might go clean through you. They might be able to do surgery, get it out. You might be all right. But with these bullets, they break apart on impact, meaning that they're sending out little bits of sharp hot metal, shrapnel, when the bullet's inside the body. It's basically ensuring that this person does not survive. Think about that. In January of 2022, Caitlin was with some friends, including her boyfriend Colin, at another Meteor Cafe. This one was in Bentonville, Arkansas. Remember, Meteor Cafe is a chain of bike-themed restaurants and bars. And apparently, Caitlin and Colin were in Bentonville, Arkansas for a race. And all of the racers and all of their friends and stuff, they met up at the Meteor Cafe after the race, and they would, chat, compare times. And while Colin and Caitlin were there, Mo Wilson walks in, right? And then it's drama, because by now everybody kind of is aware of this weird dynamic between Caitlin, Mo, and Colin. And this would be the only time that we know of, the only time I could find, where Caitlin, Mo, and Colin were all in the same place at the same time. But Mo and Caitlin did not speak to each other. You know who else didn't speak to each other? Colin and Mo. They saw each other, but they didn't talk to each other. They avoided making any contact with each other due to Caitlin's presence. And like I said, this is a red flag. And Caitlin's going to be an anxiously attached person in this relationship with Colin, and that's going to mean she's hyper vigilant about everything that seems off. Now, your boyfriend's all friendly, chatty with this girl because you can see his messages in his social media. But now you guys are all together at this restaurant, and y'all ain't even going to talk to each other? You're not even going to look at each other? You're not going to make eye contact? Not a good look. Not a good look at all. So according to Caitlin and Colin's friend and another biker, Nicole Mertz, when Mo walked in, Caitlin was visibly angry. She was shaking with anger. And Nicole's like, "Are you good?" And Caitlin told Nicole Colin had cheated on her with Mo, right? Because remember, this is after the whole October into November thing. It's not long after. It's just a couple months after. So it's very fresh still for Caitlin. And Nicole and a lot of, Caitlin and Colin's friends already kind of felt like Caitlin was too good for Colin. They kind of felt like she should just break up with him already, They all said it was weird because even though they'd been dating and together for 3 years, Colin never called Caitlin his girlfriend. The most he would do is refer to her as his lady friend. Dismissive avoidance, hate labels, because they're terrified of commitment, right? So the second they call you their girlfriend, that's going to panic. They're going to disconnect. You will not hear from them for 3-4 weeks sometimes. You just never know. They really don't like putting labels on things because they feel like any progression in the relationship is going to lose them their independence and take away like their sense of self. So Colin was just always sort of like, buddy with Caitlin. It was kind of like they were roommates that lived together and were friends and business partners, but sometimes they'd have sex. He just didn't want there to be any like emotional intimacy between them, really. And so Nicole asked Caitlin, like, it's all right if you guys break up, like you can find somebody better, but what would you do if Colin ever started dating another woman seriously? And Caitlin responded, I would kill her, right? I would kill her. Which, like, listen, that's not necessarily the worst thing to say in this moment. You're pissed. It's very fresh still. But another friend present at that time was a woman named Jacqueline Chastain. And Caitlin told her, listen, I know I talked to you back in October and November, and I told you I was done with Colin for good, but we're back together. We're in a better place now. We're in a much better place now. But Caitlin also admitted that Colin's short fling with Mo had really gotten to her because she felt that Mo had aggressively pursued Colin even after he and Caitlin had gotten back together. And allegedly, Caitlin told Jacqueline Chastain, quote, I wanted to kill her, in reference to Mo. So this is the second person that Caitlin is saying this to, which is like at that point, all right, now it's not something off the cuff. It's not something you said in a moment of emotion. And then after you were like, ugh, that didn't sound good. It's not a good look for me. I need to chill. Look out. You said it again to a different person. And Jacqueline Chastain, she told Caitlin, oh, you don't mean that, trying to give her an out. And Caitlin Armstrong doubled down saying, quote, no, I really wanted to kill her, end quote. Now, obviously, neither Nicole nor Jacqueline took Caitlin's comments too seriously in the moment, writing them off as their friend being emotional and angry. But when they found out about Mo's death, they both called anonymous tips into the police, which is also important to note. Now, here is where I have to stop sympathizing with Caitlin Armstrong, because I understand being jealous, I understand being hurt, I understand being completely like blindsided that all of a sudden your boyfriend, even though you guys just broke up, is like in a full-fledged relationship with another full-fledged human being, and being like shocked and feeling like, oh, this didn't mean anything to him. I understand being mad at him. I never understand being mad at the other woman because honestly, once again, Colin is the connecting factor here, right? Who knows what he's telling Mo Wilson? Who knows? He's probably telling Mo that everything with Caitlin is just work and she just lives with me because she can't get out. She doesn't have her own apartment yet. Like, I'm done with her. We don't know what exactly Colin was telling Mo. And it's not Mo's fault. She did not make any commitment to Caitlin. Colin made the commitment to Caitlin. So what we do know, and what I think is very important to note, is that after Mo Wilson saw Colin and Caitlin at the Meteor Cafe in January, Mo sent Colin a text message saying, quote, hey, so I would like to talk to you at some point. I had originally texted you Friday, but it appears my texts aren't going through again. This weekend was strange for me, and I just want to know what's going on. If you just want to be friends, seems to be the case, then that's cool, but I'd like to talk about it because honestly, my mind has been going in circles and I don't know what to think, end quote. Once again, I just want to clarify. Colin Strickland is not on trial here. He has committed no legal crime that I know of. But Mo's text to him in January after seeing him and Caitlin at the Meteor Cafe in Bentonville, Arkansas, it directly refutes what he had told the police, what he had told everyone else in the world in a public statement that he made after her death. Now, this statement said, quote, Mariah Wilson and I had a brief romantic relationship from late October to early November 2021 that spanned a week or so while Wilson was visiting Austin. At the time, she and I both recently ended relationships. She returned to her home in California, and about a month later, Caitlin Armstrong and I reconciled and resumed our relationship. Since then, I often saw Mo at cycling events and always in public settings. AR, Stillwater, and Monterey, California. We also met for a 4-hour training ride in Santa Cruz after the Sea Otter Classic in Monterey. After our brief relationship in October of 2021, we were not in a romantic relationship, only a platonic and professional one. It was not my intention to pursue an auxiliary romantic relationship that would mislead anyone. Mariah and I were both leaders in this lonely niche sport of cycling, and I admired her greatly and considered her a close friend, end quote. So yeah, You were not in any romantic relationship after your brief dalliance in October of 2021. If Colin and Mo had mutually decided to just be friends in October or November of 2021, she certainly seemed unclear about their relationship status just a few months later in January. This is trademark dismissive avoidant. He's in a relationship with Caitlin. He gets too close. She wants too much from him. He's got to back off. He jumps into a relationship with Mo Wilson. They spend a week together. Mo Wilson, who's young, I think she's 10 years younger than Colin. She's like 25. He's 35. And she's thinking, like, I really look up to this person. I respect this person. I'm attracted to this person. We can, like, create a cycling empire together. She's got all these plans in her head because she's found a partner that finally matches her as far as, like, drive and skill and talent. They share the same passions. They have tons to talk about, right? And she's maybe trying to just figure out, like, a normal person, hey, what's going on here while they're hanging out in October? And he's like, I just got out of a relationship. And I'm not really looking to dive into anything. I have to heal now. No, he just wants the dismissive avoidance love the honeymoon stage. They love that initial no strings attached, dopamine infused feeling of just being with a new person. And as soon as that new person is like, hey, I like you, I want to be committed to you, they're like, I'm suddenly not attracted to you anymore. I suddenly feel a huge desire to run as far and as fast as I can. So I think that he probably just pulled away and kind of just started acting a little more distant and acting more like professional and kind of not taking the bait when she would send flirty texts, but not because he was with Caitlin, to be honest, just because he had been triggered by Mo wanting more now, in my opinion. Now listen, Colin did not respond to Mo's message right away. He actually wrote back the next day saying, quote, hey Mo, I feel very shitty for putting you in a position where you don't feel comfortable. Caitlin came to go to a meeting about this Sprinter Spartan Hotel project. In hindsight, this was not a good idea, end quote. So here's my problem. Colin does not explicitly and clearly tell Mo, my bad. I thought I was clear in November, but yes, I would very much like to remain friends. I respect you. I enjoy talking to you. I think that we have a lot to learn and gain from each other. However, I do not want anything romantic with you at this time because I'm currently in a committed relationship with Caitlin Armstrong, my girlfriend of almost 3 years who lives with me, right? He kind of made it seem as if the only reason Caitlin was even in Arkansas with him that weekend was for a work meeting, not because they were like dating and together. And he also makes it seem as if he wishes that Caitlin had not come along. He's like, in hindsight, probably not the best idea. So he's more concerned, allegedly, according to what he's telling Mo, he's more concerned about her comfortability, her feeling good about the situation, and less concerned about Caitlin and what she wants and whether or not she wants to be a part of Colin's life and be with him at these things that he's doing. For work, for his hobby, for his passion, whatever. Caitlin wants to be involved in that. She wants to be a part of his life, not just like his business manager. So once again, Colin's not being clear with Mo. And the reason that this is because dismissive avoidants do that. They don't want to they want to just ghost you and hope that you're waiting there when they eventually come back, right? Because they will come back when their fears subside. Their fears of you wanting more from them, when they subside, they will come back. They always come back. And he wants her to be there, thinking that there's still a possibility that something can happen between them. So they like dismissive avoidance, like to keep backups, like to keep people kind of waiting in the wings so that they can bounce back and forth. So he's not going to clearly be like, yeah, I'm all set, because Mo provides him something and all of these other women provide him something, which is once again reinforcement that he's worthwhile. Dismissive avoidants have a huge defective wound. This is just my opinion, okay? I'm not a mental health professional. I have not talked to Colin. I have not examined him or talked to him in like a therapy setting. Just from what I've observed, this is just my opinion. Allegedly, don't come for me. I'm not saying this is a fact. This is just what I see. For those of you out there who are familiar with what I'm talking about, let me know if you see the same thing. So he's not going to break things off with Mo completely. He's going to leave her hanging, which is torture for most people who are kind of having feelings for dismissive avoidance. And the funny thing is that Colin actually competed in 2 races in Arkansas that month. The first one, Caitlin was with him and he didn't interact with Mo. The second one, Caitlin was not with him and he did interact with and see Mo. So that's going to tell you really all that you need to know. And remember how Mo's text message had said, oh, I sent you a message the other day, but for some reason my messages must not be going through again. That was because Caitlin Armstrong, who had access to all of Colin's passwords and social media accounts, was blocking Mo from his phone, along with several other women that she didn't want Colin interacting with. Not only was she taking it upon herself to block numbers from Colin's phone, but she was monitoring his messages through the laptop they shared, his text messages and his DMs. So in April of 2022, Colin spent about a month in, California and Arizona. He was doing some road training. He was competing in some events. And during that time, when he's away from Caitlin, when he's not physically living with her, Colin's conversations with Mo Wilson continued and ramped up through texting and DMs. Because once again, a couple of months have passed since he felt triggered by Mo. A couple of months have passed since he's been back with Caitlin and realizes the reasons that he doesn't want to be with Caitlin. And so he's kind of, alone in a hotel room flirting with Mo Wilson. And Caitlin is sitting at home in Austin watching on the computer as these conversations unfolded. Now, during that month, Mo Wilson was also competing through California and Arizona, and she was on a winning streak. She first beat out 30 of the top gravel racing cyclists in the country at the Seattle Classic in Monterey. And remember, after that, that's when she and Colin and some other friends went on this 5-hour training ride. And then Mo went on to win the Belgian waffle ride in San Diego on April 30th. And during this time, Colin, who was also at these same events, he shared a video of a bike race, I think to his Instagram. And at the end of the video, you could see Mo Wilson there. And so Caitlin sent Colin a text saying, quote, "Send my love to Mo," end quote. And you might be like, oh, that's so sweet. What a nice thing to say. She's coming around to their friendship. But no, I think clearly it's a passive-aggressive message. It's exactly the kind of message that an anxiously attached person would send. It's almost like Caitlin wants Colin to know that she's watching. She's on to what he's doing, hoping that he'll behave, right? This is what anxious people like to do. They like to kind of let you know that they see what you're doing, kind of like a parent who tells a kid oh, I know you did this. And the kid's like, how do you know I did this? And the parent's like, don't worry about how I know. I just know. Because they're trying to plant into the kid's head, I'm always watching. So you never know when I'm going to be peeping in on you. So you better behave yourself. And once again, all Caitlin should have had to have realized is you got to give people the space to treat you as they would naturally treat you without your interference, without your input. You've got to let people go so that they have the room to hang themselves, basically. They have the room to betray you, because then you'll know. And then you won't ever have to know again. If somebody, once they have space and independence and trust, if they betray that trust, if they cheat on you, if they do something uncouth, now this person has showed you their true colors and you didn't, have to waste years on them. You allowed them to go out and be who they were, and being who they were meant not respecting you. And now you know. But somebody like Caitlin is going to want to keep Colin in a little cage, where he can't ever see other women, where he can't ever have an opportunity to betray her because she wants him that badly. Not really thinking well, if I don't ever give him an opportunity to see what else is out there, then how do I know that he wants to be with me above all others because he wants to be with me above all others? How do I know it's just because he's in a cage in prison and he just doesn't know what else is out there? That's kind of the way I look at it. But Colin, who's familiar with his girlfriend and her patterns and the way she talks and stuff, he also knew she was not being sincere about the "send my love to Mo" text. And, he was bothered and annoyed by it. And I get it. He was probably doing something wrong. He was probably not just friends with Mo, not just friends with many people, okay? And Caitlin obviously didn't trust him. She was suspicious. She was so suspicious and so jealous and so anxious. She was driven to check up on him and monitor his communications. And like I said, that's when it's time to call time of death on the relationship and move on. There's really no working through this level of distrust on Caitlin's end and this level of disrespect on Colin's end. Those are the two things. Forget love. Forget attraction. If you don't have trust and respect for each other, You're dead in the water. On May 2nd, 2022, Colin was in Tucson, Arizona for a race, and Caitlin decided to fly from Austin to Tucson so she could drive back home with Colin. Before Caitlin arrived in Tucson, Colin deleted his messaging threads with Mo, and in his phone, he changed Mo's contact name to Christine Wall. He said, listen, this Christine Wall, she's not a real person, at least not a person that he knew in real life, but he did this to avoid conflict with Caitlin. Okay, I get that. You probably did do it to avoid conflict with Caitlin, but also you did it to avoid the truth that you were still communicating with Mo, even though Caitlin clearly didn't like it and it was clearly causing problems in your relationship. So Colin and Caitlin arrived back in Austin on May 9th. And on that day, Caitlin Armstrong looked up Mo Wilson using the Strava app twice. So Colin, Caitlin, and Mo all used the Strava app to track their workouts. We've actually talked about the Strava app in other cases where it was used to track somebody, but it seems a little dangerous. And I would say if you are a public figure and you have any enemies, like maybe don't make your stuff on Strava public, because the Strava app allows people to track their workouts, but the information's public. And this can be accessed by anyone using the Strava app if your profile's not private. And so this would show Caitlin where Mo was at the times that she logged her rides. This would come in handy for Caitlin because the following day, May 10th, the day before Mo Wilson was shot to death, Mo flew into Austin to compete in gravel locos the following weekend. This race was going to be in Hico, Texas, and it was scheduled for May 14th. And when she, landed and when she was flying in, Mo texted Colin. She said, hey, are you back in Austin? He replied, yes, I am. He said he'd just gotten back the day before. And Mo told him, listen, I'm going to be in town. I'm staying with my friend, Caitlin Cash. I'm going to be, going to the race this weekend. And I wanted to come in a few days early. And Colin suggested that they go on a training ride together before her race. So now we're going to bring in another person. This is Caitlin Cash. Caitlin Cash was from Austin, but during the pandemic, she and a few friends had purchased an old inn in East Burke, Vermont. And this inn happened to be just across the street from something called the Kingdom Trails, which is a network of hundreds of miles of single track. People go mountain biking and they practice their gravel racing and stuff on this. And Caitlin Cash herself was into gravel racing, and she competed on the weekends when she wasn't working her full-time job as a project manager for a software company. On August 2nd, 2021, Caitlin Cash was at Rooted in Vermont. This is an 86-mile challenging hilly race, and that's when she first saw Mariah Wilson racing. And Caitlin noticed Moriah, not only for her grit and resilience, but also her grace under pressure. Basically, this was like an instant love connection. Caitlin made friends with Mo's family, who were on the sidelines cheering. She realized that they lived very close to the inn she just purchased. They were basically neighbors. And over the next few months, while Caitlin's doing work on the inn, because it's the pandemic, she's working remotely. She doesn't have to be in Austin. She's doing work on the inn. She's fixing it up. She's practicing her biking and stuff. She would become very close friends with Mo's mother. And it was a few months later in October, while both Caitlin and Mo were in Bentonville for another race, the two women finally met. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about Caitlin Cash. We're not talking about Caitlin Armstrong. Caitlin Armstrong is a K, Caitlin Cash is a C, and I know it's going to get confusing, so from now on, I'll just call Caitlin Cash by her last name, Cash, so that you're not over here because sometimes you tune out and you're doing something else, and then you'll tune back in, but you lost 5 seconds, and then you're all of a sudden wait, what? Caitlin Armstrong and Mo Wilson were best friends, and Caitlin Armstrong was super tight with Mo Wilson's mother? What? No. Caitlin Cash and Mo were friends. Caitlin Cash and Mo's mother became friends. We'll just call her Cash. So Cash and Mo, they finally meet face to face after Mo won this race in Bentonville. And that night, Cash approached Mo at the bar. They all go to the bar after, and they talked, and they became very fast, very close friends. Mo's mother, Karen, described it as a sisterly soulmate bond. And Cash, who had lost her own mother to cancer a decade prior, became a second daughter to Karen Wilson. According to a very well-written article in bicycling.com that I will actually post in the description box if you want to check it out, quote, within a few weeks, Mo was crashing in Cash's apartment in Austin, stringing her laptop cord across the kitchen, swapping career advice and wine recommendations. They didn't ride together. Mo was tough to keep up with, but they both loved to cook. Cash, an empty-the-fridge kind of chef. Mo, a methodical gourmand who shopped for the ingredients in each new recipe. Mo worked from the kitchen, Cash from the loft, and during the day they kept up with a steady banter of workshopping and wording of texts and emails from either end of the stairs. A few weeks later, Cash was up in Vermont again at the Wilsons for Christmas, pulling lip balm and Toblerone from a stocking that had belonged to Mo's grandfather. All the while, Mo was winning almost everything she lined up for. Big Sugar, Gravel Hugger Rock, second at Leadville in Mid-South, first in the Belgian Waffle Ride by more than half an hour, first again at Sea Otter. In May, she was back in Austin, staying with Cash and preparing for Gravel Locos, another race in which she was yet again a favorite, end quote. So saying she's a favorite means that it was projected, by people who knew about gravel racing, that Mo was going to do very well in Gravel Locos, and this was a race that she wouldn't even ever have the chance to participate in. On the day that Mo flew into Austin, May 10th, Caitlin Armstrong looked her up on the Strava app 4 times, which is probably, in my opinion, this is never said anywhere, just so you know. This is once again just my opinion. I think it's probably why Caitlin insisted on going along with Colin the following day, May 11th, when he went on a 3-hour training ride with a male friend. Caitlin ended up not being able to keep up during this ride. She had to turn back after 30 minutes, and I saw some people commenting and saying, oh, how mean and thoughtless is Colin? He left her behind in the dust during that ride. He couldn't even wait for her. But first of all, Colin is doing a training ride. The whole point is push yourself and see if you can get a good time and stuff. It's not like an afternoon Sunday bicycle ride to get ice cream at the local soda shop. He's not just gonna stroll along next to her. She knew what she was signing up for. But I will say, I don't even think that it was Colin leaving Caitlin behind. Caitlin was in good shape. She was a biker. She was an athlete herself. I believe she could have kept up for longer than half an hour. She could have at least completed the trail. I think she saw the message where Colin suggested that he and Mo go on a training ride because Mo was in town. And when Colin told Caitlin that he was going on a training ride, she was like, oh, this motherfucker's going on a ride with Mo. And so I'm going to insist that I come along so I can either, surprise them and be like, ha, what are you going to do now that I'm here? Or, she could, I guess, see for herself the dynamic between Colin and Mo, see if there was any lingering emotions, if they acted in a familiar way with each other, if they acted like they were having an affair. I don't know what her plan was. But as soon as Caitlin saw that it wasn't Mo and it was a male friend, she was like, ugh, I don't want to be on this freaking race. I don't want to be on this trail biking for 3, 4, 5 hours. Not interested. I actually don't want to bike this long and this hard. I'm going to go home, which I totally get. But Mo Wilson had actually gone on her own training ride that day, and she sent Colin a selfie of herself. And she was on her bike. She was covered in dirt and sweat. I guess it was super hot in Austin that week. And so Colin suggested that he and Mo should go for a swim that night and then, get some food afterwards. And she was like, yeah. Hell yeah. Actually, she replied, quote, sounds great. I'm dying out here, end quote, because it's super hot and, a pool sounds great. Swimming sounds great. So Mo Wilson and Colin Strickland finalized their plans to see each other that night around 4:45 p.m. That's when they finalized the plans. But when Colin left home that evening, he did not tell Caitlin that Mo was in town. He did not tell Caitlin that he was meeting up with Mo. They were going to go swimming and then have some dinner. He lied, and he said he had errands to run on the other side of town, not realizing, I don't know how he didn't realize at this point, but not thinking, I guess, that Caitlin was able to see all of his communications, including him making plans with Mo. And in that conversation, Mo had sent Colin Caitlin Cash's address because Mo was staying at Caitlin Cash's apartment. And she sent it to Colin so he could pick her up that night. And Caitlin Armstrong would have access to that information as well, where Caitlin Cash lived. So Colin picked Mo up from Cash's apartment on his BMW motorcycle around 6 p.m. that night. The pair then headed over to Deep Eddy. This is a public swimming pool in Austin. After they swam, Colin and Mo headed to Pool Burger, which was right next to Deep Eddy. They ordered some food. They had some frozen drinks. While Colin was with Mo having dinner, Caitlin tried to reach him a few times. She called, she texted, he ignored her. Later, Austin police would collect surveillance footage from Pool Burger and the surrounding establishments, and the cameras caught footage of a black Jeep Grand Cherokee driving by while Colin and Mo are eating. This black Jeep Grand Cherokee is the vehicle driven by Caitlin Armstrong, and it's going to show up on multiple surveillance videos from the night of May 11th. After dinner, Colin drove Mo back to Caitlin Cash's apartment, and he dropped her off around 8:34 p.m. Now, at that time, Cash was out to dinner with friends, but she'd given Mo a passcode to use to enter the apartment, and this was a unique passcode for Mo specifically. And Caitlin saw on her phone that this code was punched in at 8:36 p.m., meaning that Mo had unlocked the door to the apartment. She was home. At 8:38 p.m., right after he drops Mo off, Colin finally responded to his girlfriend, Caitlin Armstrong, texting, quote, "Hey, are you out? I went to drop some flowers for Allison at her son's house up north, and my phone died. Heading home unless you have another food suggestion," end quote. This is also something that lets me know, or makes me feel at least, that Colin had not been honest with Mo about his relationship status with Caitlin. Because if Colin had told Mo, like, yeah, I'm here with you, but I'm still in a relationship with Caitlin and she doesn't like it, and so I just have to respond to her. She's texting me and I have respect for my relationship partner and I want to let her know that everything's okay and ease her fears. I got to get back to her really quick. Instead of doing that while he and Mo were together and at dinner, he ignored Caitlin until he dropped Mo off, until she was no longer in his presence. And all of a sudden he switches into boyfriend mode and he's like, "Hey, I'm heading home. Had to drop some flowers off for Allison up north. That's why it took so long. And, now I'm going to, get home to you. Do you have any food suggestions?" Caitlin did not reply to this text. And honestly, I bet it really stressed Colin out because he's got a guilty conscience at this point. And especially because Caitlin is so responsive and she's always texting him. She always wants to know where he is. He's the one that goes silent when she goes silent. When an anxious partner goes quiet in a relationship and doesn't respond to texts, their DA partner gets scared because they think like, oh, what are they doing right now? What are they digging into? My anxiously attached partner is not just soothing themselves or emotionally regulating themselves. They're not lost in a hobby like I would be. They are up to something, and usually that doesn't mean anything good for me. So that's why, again, at 8:43 p.m., when he was just a couple minutes from home, Colin texted Caitlin again. He still got no reply. Now, we do know that by 9:07 p.m., Colin was at his house because he was on the phone with his friend, Kenneth Allen Burrows, and he remained on the phone for 7 minutes, at which time Burrows said that Colin was in his garage looking for bike parts. At 9:21 p.m., Caitlin was still not home, and she had still not responded to his other texts. So Colin's freaking out a little bit here, and he texted her again, but she didn't respond. When she did get home at 9:48 p.m., Colin said Caitlin was driving her black Jeep as she always did, and she seemed completely fine. She wasn't mad at him for not answering her earlier. She didn't grill him about where he had been. In fact, she seemed really super happy with him, and she initiated sex with Colin, which he later testified was maybe a little bit more aggressive than usual. Now, we're going to talk more about this in depth next time, but during a big portion of that evening, May 11th, the evening that Mo Wilson was shot to death, Caitlin Armstrong had turned off her phone. However, her Jeep's Uconnect system was still tracking her movements, and this system would even reveal when the vehicle was parked, when it was turned off, when it was turned back on again, when it started to drive, where it went, etc. According to the GPS, Caitlin's Jeep approached I-35 before turning on MLK Jr. Boulevard at 7:35 p.m. The SUV then turned onto Cedar and Maple Avenue, and the data showed that it remained in that area for at least an hour. It was sort of circling the neighborhood like an actual predator, like a hawk waiting for its vulnerable and unknown prey to just walk up. And only a few minutes after Colin had dropped Mo off, Caitlin's Jeep was stopped in an alley next to Maple Ave at 8:37 p.m. And it just so happened that the only entrance to Caitlin Cash's apartment where Mo was staying was through this alley. A neighbor's security camera captured a black Jeep with chrome on the windows and a bike rack on top, pulling through a driveway that connected Maple Ave to an alley parallel to the street. The SUV slowed down near Caitlin Cash's apartment, then circled the block once more before stopping in a parking area near the Maple Ave alley at 8:40 p.m. At that point, the vehicle was parked and turned off, and the Jeep was not turned back on again until 9:17 p.m. Footage taken from neighbor Michael Donlan's Ring doorbell camera captured the sounds of Mo Wilson screaming before 3 gunshots rang out, and this happened around 9:15 p.m. When Caitlin Cash arrived home after dinner, she had a to-go box in her hand. She had her cell phone in her hand. She walked into the apartment, she walked into the kitchen, and she placed the to-go box and her cell phone on the kitchen counter, and that's when she turned and saw her friend Mo laying on the floor of the bathroom. And Caitlin said that initially her brain could not process what she was seeing. Of course it couldn't. Of course, you definitely don't expect to walk into that, ever. At first, Caitlin Cash said, maybe Mo was laying on the bathroom floor because she was sore from her ride that day. Maybe she was lying on the cool tile of the bathroom floor because it was so hot that night. But Caitlin was also trying to talk to Mo. She was like, hey, I'm home. What are you doing? How was your swim? How was dinner? What's going on? But she received no response, which is when she walked over and saw that Mo was laying in a pool of blood. At 9:54 p.m., Caitlin Cash placed a call to 911, and approximately 7 minutes later, Austin police arrived on the scene to find Caitlin performing CPR on Mo's motionless body. Officers found 3 bullet casings on the floor by Mo's body, and they were marked 9mm JAG. Mo had been shot 3 times overall, once in the right side of her face, once to the right side of her head, and once in the chest, right where her heart was. The medical examiner, Dr. Bernadette Busey, would later say that Mo had a finger wound, which appeared to be defensive, as if Mo had tried to protect herself by lifting her hand to her face, protect herself from the bullets, which of course you can't, but in your brain in that moment, you're going to do whatever you can. And so one of the bullets had grazed her fingers and left this wound. And as we heard in the Ring doorbell footage, the first 2 shots were in quick succession, boom, boom. But then there was a several-second pause between the second and third shot. And law enforcement believes that this was because whoever had shot Mo, aka Caitlin Armstrong, they had shot her twice in the face and the head. And then when she fell to the floor, they stood over her and fired that third and last shot right into her heart because the bullet was found buried into the tile behind Mo's body. Mo Wilson was pronounced dead at 10:10 p.m. She was just 25 years old. And then police questioned Caitlin Cash, at which point she told them that Mo had been hanging out with her friend, Colin Strickland. Caitlin also said that when she'd left to go to dinner earlier that night, she'd seen Mo's bicycle travel bag sitting next to the front door on the elevated porch outside of the apartment. And she'd gone back inside and told Mo, hey, you should bring that bag in, someone could steal it. And then when she got home that night, Cash said that Mo's bag was now at the bottom of the stairs that led to the porch and the apartment entrance, and the bag was partially blocking the garage. So apparently the bag had started out at the top of the stairs, like it's like a raised deck kind of, but when Caitlin Cash got home, it hadn't been brought inside. It was down the stairs, kind of on the ground, blocking a garage, partially blocking a garage that people who live in the apartment would park in. When Caitlin had tried the door to her apartment after dinner, she'd found it unlocked. And this was unusual, right? Caitlin Cash always kept her apartment locked, and every time Mo would, be there and she would leave or come back, she would always lock the apartment. And police noticed that there were no signs of forced entry. Nothing seemed to be missing except for Mo's specialized S-Works bike, which, by the way, is a very expensive bike. It's valued at between $10,000 and I think $14,000. So after a quick search, officers located the bike about 70 feet south of Cash's apartment. It was thrown into an area of thick bamboo. And Caitlin Cash was like, no, I don't think Mo would have left her bike this way. It's very, very expensive. These are racing bikes. They're also super light, so it wouldn't take somebody very strong to lift a bike and throw it into some bamboo. They're very light. I think they're made out of like carbon fiber, light materials, which makes them more faster. More fast? More faster? Faster. And obviously this bike is super important to Mo, especially with a big race coming up in a few days. And what we'll come to find when we talk about this next time is that DNA and fingerprints would be lifted from this bike. While the scene was being processed, Detective Rolando Ramirez of the APD, the Austin Police Department, he saw that there was a surveillance camera mounted on the outside of a residence, and the camera faced the driveway that was next door to Caitlin Cash's apartment. The homeowner allowed the police to view the footage, and that's when they saw the black Jeep Grand Cherokee with chrome on the windows and a bike rack mounted on top driving past Cash's apartment more than once. More importantly, no other vehicles were seen on the video surveillance until the police and ambulance arrived after 10 p.m. So it's just this black Jeep driving around. No one else. Now, at this point, Colin Strickland is going to be the main person of interest as far as law enforcement was concerned. He had spent time with Mo during the day of May 11th, and this made him the last person to see her alive as far as law enforcement knew. However, it appeared that Mo had been okay when she'd entered Caitlin Cash's apartment because she'd sent a quick text at 9:13 p.m. I think it was to like a podcaster in maybe Oregon or something, or California, but she had sent a quick text at 9:13 p.m. She's still alive. And that text was sent just a few minutes before the shots rang out, the shots that ended her life. And it appeared that whoever had killed Mo, aka Caitlin Armstrong, she had followed Mo into the apartment, and either she knocked to be let in, or Mo had forgotten to lock the door behind her when she was entering, which she would have done using the same unique code that Caitlin Cash had given her to unlock the door. So Mo would lock the door and unlock the door with the same code. So a lot of people wanted to know, like, how did Mo's killer get into the apartment if it's locked? Well, Mo never locked the door. So the question here is, she obviously wasn't forced into the apartment. Like, somebody wasn't waiting in like some vestibule to jump out and, as soon as Mo opened the door, like push her in, because Mo sent a text a few minutes after she got inside. So either Caitlin Armstrong knocked on the door and then Mo opened it, unlocked it and opened it and was like, "Oh, hey, Caitlin, are you here to yell at me again?" And Caitlin was like, "No, I just want to talk. We got to lay this to rest once and for all." And so Mo maybe was like, "Oh, come in." And then boom, boom, the Caitlin starts shooting. Or Mo, with a lot of stuff on her mind about the race that weekend, about the text she had to send, walked into the apartment, didn't lock it right away, and just said like, "Oh, let me put my stuff down, let me get this text sent, and then I'll come back and lock it." And she didn't think about it, and then Caitlin Armstrong just entered and surprised Mo. In reality, the entire murder started and finished within just a couple of minutes. So whatever happened quickly. And David Harris, a neighbor who lived in the unit below Caitlin Cash, he said that on the evening of May 11th, he was heading to the garage to take a bong hit before going for a long walk, which he did to relax himself, I guess. And when he went to open the garage door, he said he heard someone running down the stairs from Caitlin Cash's apartment. He then described hearing what he claimed sounded like a bicycle taking off, not a motorcycle, a bicycle. So what is speculated is that Caitlin Armstrong fled the scene and actually rode Mo's racing bike a few, dozen feet before throwing it into some brush where it was later found. The motive behind this is a little bit unknown. Maybe Caitlin held some irrational hatred for the bike. Maybe she looked at it as being representative of the passion and the love of gravel racing that Mo and Colin shared. Maybe Caitlin wanted to get away quicker since her Jeep wasn't parked right outside of the apartment, and so she used the bike to close the distance between herself and her getaway car more quickly. Like I said, I think it was like 60, 70 feet away from the apartment, so maybe she like kind of got that far and she was like, "All right, I'm good now. I can get rid of this bike," and then she just tossed it into like a bamboo forest. Another neighbor, Martha Paleo, also provided police with surveillance footage that showed Caitlin Armstrong's black Jeep from multiple angles, as did neighbor Andrew Vong, who had a video of Caitlin's Jeep circling the block. None of these people remembered hearing any gunshots that night, however, which is really hard to believe because on that Ring doorbell camera footage, it's very loud. It's very intense. You'd notice it, but maybe they thought it was a car backfiring. I don't know. Either way, they didn't hear it, allegedly. Austin police detectives would continue processing the scene that night, but the next day they would pay a visit to the home that Colin Strickland and Caitlin Armstrong shared. They would go there thinking that Colin was the person they needed answers from, especially when they pulled in and saw a black Jeep in the driveway, right? The detective who would testify later, he was like, "Yo, I saw the same black Jeep in the driveway that I saw in the surveillance footage," and it was like, holy shit. He didn't say that, but, he's like, kind of was like everything was falling into place. It's almost like it's too easy at this point. But when they talked to Colin, and then when they talked to Caitlin Armstrong, everyone would start to realize as events began to unfold that the real person of interest was Caitlin. And it appeared that her motive for cutting short this young and promising life of Mo Wilson was pure and simple jealousy. One of the oldest and most commonly used motives for murder throughout history. And that's where we're going to pick up next time. But I wanted to pull it back before we go and talk about Caitlin Armstrong really quick, because a lot of people would testify that she was very non-aggressive, non-violent. And Colin was like, she was so chill. She was so laid back. I don't know what happened. She couldn't have done this. I think that Caitlin Armstrong was not like just naturally chill and laid back. When you're in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, you sort of have to be, or you know that they're going to A, leave you, or B, they'll disengage. They'll pull back. They'll deactivate from you. And then you just never know when they're going to come back. And then when they come back, it takes them a while to warm up. So you kind of have to be super, super, super patient when you're in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant. And after time, you start to feel resentful because you're like, I don't know why I'm always catering to this person and their needs and like their triggers. I have needs that I feel like I can't communicate because whenever I do, they get mad at me and then they pull away. I have needs that are not being met and I don't feel safe to express them. And the resentment starts to build up and then you kind of snap. Now, am I saying that this is why Caitlin Armstrong murdered Mo Wilson because she snapped because Colin was a dismissive avoidant? No. The other thing about an anxiously attached person and a dismissive avoidant is that anxiously attached person is going to love this dismissive avoidant more than anybody they've ever loved in their whole lives. More than anybody who's ever done anything for them in their whole lives, they are going to become obsessed with this DA and think like, this is the only person for me. This is some soul connection. It's like a twin flame. This is everything I've ever wanted. I cannot lose this person, right? That's what they're going to do. And so she's not going to blame Colin. She's going to take the resentment and anger that Colin deserved. Not that he deserved to die. Okay, please don't get it twisted. He deserved to have her anger and her resentment. Whatever Caitlin Armstrong was feeling, if she wanted to tell him off and break up with him, he deserved that. But she should have directed that anger and resentment towards Colin and not towards Mo Wilson. So yeah, that was just my opinion. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment. But before you sign off, don't leave yet, because we got to dive into Stephanie's Small Business Showcase. We do. I forgot last video. I feel terrible. So today's small business comes to us from Brittany. And honestly, I love what she's got going on here because I think it's perfect for the holiday season. And there's some crossover with another passion of mine, coffee. Brittany says that she's a fan of both my YouTube channel and Crime Weekly. Thank you so much, Brittany. We love you. And she's a mother of 5. Wow, 5. Girl, I admire you. She says she's a mother of 5. She's always searching for something to keep her mind challenged. Totally get that. As a mother of any child, you sometimes will need that mental stimulation felt. So Brittany, 2 years ago, she opened an Etsy shop and she sells coffee gift boxes because she too is a coffee fanatic. She said, quote, while I originally wanted to focus on local coffees in Ohio, there was a bigger demand for K-Cups, so I added K-Cups. They're typically paired with swaffles and or biscottis. I occasionally have other items such as mugs, stirrers, and coasters as well. I love when customers send in gift messages as well. I add a background and laminate it so it pops. End quote. Brittany says that she's created a code for 15% off at her Etsy shop, and I'll put it in the description box along with the link to her Etsy shop. And I just love this idea because I think coffee makes a great gift for most people. And this adds that extra special touch and personalization that ups the presentation and makes your gift feel more polished and, gifty. And so I think with the holiday season coming up, I know we all know people that love coffee. Maybe Criminal Coffee and Brittany can do a little collab. We'll sell her some of our coffee. She can do some Criminal Coffee gift boxes. How cool would that be? Let me know, Brittany. Hit me up, girl. But until then, go check out Brittany's Etsy shop. Go check out her coffee gift boxes. 'Tis the season. Give her some love. Show her some love. Tell her we sent you. Me. Tell her I sent you. Maybe I have multiple personalities. Tell her that Stephanie Harlowe sent you. And just reach out and say, hey, good job raising 5 kids and a business, lady. Good freaking job. That's amazing. Good job. Happy holidays. I love supporting small businesses, and I especially love supporting small businesses of subscribers and followers of this channel because I feel like we're a family and family takes care of each other. So that's all I have for now. So all I need you to do is hit like if you liked this video. Hit share if you think it's worth sharing. Subscribe if you haven't already. What are you waiting for, man? Come on down. It's warm here. We've got coffee and snacks. We have fun. We talk about serious things, but we have fun. Subscribe already. Is that desperate sounding? Do I sound thirsty? And I will be back to finish this case with you in part 2 very, very soon. Until then, stay kind, stay beautiful, stay safe, and I'll see you very soon. Bye.
wave, calling out my name. Better say I Hail Mary. Well, you don't know how deep it goes until it's getting you slowly. So you got to let it go. I got blood